to the Chalanting pod again. This is episode 5. Whoa! Yes, we are so back again because it's spring break, so I can film another one. But yeah, I kind of wanted to maybe more of like a mini pod because not a lot has happened since the last week. But there have been some things on my mind that I kind of wanted to, yap away at, Chalanting pod. Okay, starting with the drink of the episode, so it doesn't melt. I have this gorgeous raspberry matcha latte. Look at those layers. And it's gonna melt, so I kind of gotta drink it fast. I said phonies first, and I don't want it to taste bad, so we're gonna just try it, just dig in. I use this old jam jar that my mom had, and I used it to make like a peach mango matcha latte, because it's a peach mango jam. But now I can repurpose it as like a little cup for my matcha lattes. I should have gotten a straw, in hindsight. In hindsight, I should have gotten a straw. But I think it'll be okay. I'll get one later. Okay, let's see. That is quite good. I am mostly drinking the cream because there's no straw here, but I can use a spoon and try a bit of the raspberry. Okay, I just think raspberry and matcha just complement each other pretty well. Just like dark chocolate and raspberry go very well together. I think that was a success. I will rate 8.5 out of 10. Not like the most life-changing matcha I've ever had in my life, but it's pretty good. It's also homemade, so win is a win. Okay, I got a straw so we can enjoy it a bit more thoroughly. Yeah, it's a lot better with a straw because you can actually taste the raspberry together with the matcha. Okay, so how am I doing? Hello, how are you? My name is. It has only been a week since I last did my podcast, so, not a lot has actually happened, but there have been some updates. I remember I was stressing out about getting the cross-cultural center job last episode. I forgot if I was that specific, but your girl got in the bag. I got the offer for the job and I accepted it, and I was like, wait, let's literally go. Like, I thought I was going to be rejected. I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my god, my future is like screwed. And like, even if I didn't get it, my future is not screwed. Like, I still believe in everything I said in the last video or last podcast, but got in the bag. And I was like I was overjoyed. I was like, oh my god, they want me so bad. Like, because I thought that I was gonna get rejected, especially because it's like probably a very competitive like application pool. So, but got the job. Very excited to be making money next year, but also working at the Cross Cultural Center. More importantly, I'm the like ANPI community coordinator, and I'm like, yippee! Very Asian American studies of me. So blessed, excited. Yes, your girl has a job. Other updates that have happened. I don't know, like, low-key, even though it's spring break and I was feeling very jolly and happy beforehand, I was also, like, kind of stressed and kind of anxious. I think it's a lot of the, like, future anxieties I was talking about last episode, but also just, like, I don't know, just a bit stressed. And I think the reality is, even if I'm, like, stress-free, like, no stressors, I'm still stressed. And I think it's because I have, like, actual anxiety. And I was like, oh, that's probably why. Which isn't, like, a great answer, but, it is an answer. Yeah, I think I've still been feeling something inside, which is why I'm here to yap. I would say another thing that's been going on is, like, that's good and also bad is I've been sleeping pretty early. Getting my sleep in. It feels really good to be able to sleep, like, at, like, 9:30 or 10:30, and I'm like, wow, I don't have anything going on, just go to bed. And then I wake up at, like, 7, 8, or 9, and I'm like, I don't even have any obligations, like, let's go. So that has been great, but I've been having these extremely vivid, realistic dreams, which I don't like. Like, something about me is that even when I'm stressed or tired, or even if I just, like, eat something, I don't know, I'll have these extremely vivid dreams that are terrifying, like either extremely terrifying and disturbing, and I wake up feeling like absolutely shaken, or they're very realistic, so I literally think they're real. Like, I've had dreams about sending emails that I haven't sent, which is diabolical, because, like, you can't discern if that's a dream or reality, because it's like an email unless you check your inbox. And then, or I'll have, like, dreams that are, like, manifestations of my internal stress, and then I'm like, oh my god, like, why can I not find peace when I sleep? Anyway, so I've been having that too, and it's kind of a lot, so, but I don't know. I'm just glad I'm getting more sleep in, preparing for, spring quarter and stuff. Also, I got a haircut, as you can probably tell. I did freak out about it for a while because, okay, I did go to Great Clips because I was like, okay, budget haircut. My dad was like, you should just get one for, like, cheap because you're not really doing that much hair. I was like, so true, Dad, save money. But it was a budget haircut. And basically, Miss Girl just, like, cut straight. Like, and also she cut off a lot of hair. Like, I didn't really want it to be this short. And it's, like, very, very blunt cut. And then I went home and I was like, oh my god, I look like a rectangle. I look like the me. Like, the me haircut where it's, like, bangs are like this, hair is like this. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't do this. So I did kind of cut some layers. I don't think it looks that good because I'm not professional. I just kind of went out with scissors, which I don't know if it's a good idea. But I think it's not too bad. And I was trying to stop freaking out over it because my friends were like, girl, it's literally fine. And I was like, okay, thank you so much for your reassurance because I don't know if I look like a square or anything. I think it definitely would look better if I, like, style it like this and, like, do the curtain bangs or whatever. But, yes, new hair, new tee, new jeans for the new quarter. But I do think at least the dead ends are off because my hair was very dead with the bleach and everything. And it's, like, softer and, like, easier to, like, comb and, like, shower. So that's good. That's good. I'm just not used to having this length of hair. I did have it before, but it's been a minute, But yes, Johanna does have new hair. Okay, but we need to talk about the music. I can't even choose a song for this episode because there's been so much new music coming out. Like, we are blessed. I am blessed by these artists. Okay, first of all, Grant Perez, first full, like, album, Backlist and Arrest. Oh my god. Okay, I've only listened to it through once, but I need to listen to it through again. Like, I'm probably gonna do it when I'm, like, driving, because I feel like that allows me to, like, soak in all the music, but I love Grant Perez. Oh my god! So, blessed with that. Also, Lynn Lapid released, Death Wish, and Jessie Beara also released more music, and I'm like, I'm just getting fed left and right. So, I've been very blessed. So much music coming my way. So much new music 2025. But yeah, so I can't even choose. Okay, I'm just gonna put the whole album, the whole Grant Perez album as this episode's, like, song or music of the episode. Okay, not music, but I also found a new podcast. It's already someone I know. It's Dustin Vong. He's, like, a YouTuber, but he has a podcast called Park Your Butt. And I was like, wait, that's such a funny name. I love that. And I started listening to it. And it is pretty fire. Not gonna lie, it's pretty fire. So, if you, I don't know. I'm not here to promo more, you should be listening to this one. But, like, I don't know. Podcast shout out. Okay, so today's episode is gonna be pretty unstructured, pretty random. And there's not really gonna be, like, a lot of centrality. The centrality, though, is giving relationship advice as someone who's not been in a relationship, but also just general relationship information / general things about relationships. Not just, like, romantic ones, but, like, any relationship. So it is going to be, like, a catch-all episode, just kind of my thoughts and that are loosely related to each other. Maybe I'll do, like, a podcast that's more specific in the future, another episode about, like, my takes, or, like, friendships specifically, or, like romantic relationships specifically. Like, I don't know, but that'll be maybe that's the future. But this episode is a lot more of, like, a catch-all sort of hodgepodge situation, and that's okay because it's my podcast, so I can do whatever. I feel like when I listen to podcasts, I honestly don't mind if they just talk about random stuff. Like, it doesn't need to be cohesive all the time. Like, it's just kind of like, you're just yapping, right? Like, the conversation just goes where it wants to. And I feel like those are kind of the best conversations, because, like, a bunch of things that you wouldn't think would come up do come up, and you're like, wow, that's so cool, and, like, I never even thought of that. The only thing is, like, the transitions. I guess technically there can just be sharp transitions where just like, okay, topic 1, topic 2, right? But I guess we will just see where things go. I do have, like, a list of things that I was like, oh, like, things I've been thinking of and I'll talk about. Some of them are, like, kind of random. Like, now that I'm reading through this list, like, it wasn't really, like, very clear, so I need to remember even what I'm trying to say. So, we will see. It's so funny. The first thing on the list is rizz. It just says, it's just rizz with nothing else. And that's so funny. I'm trying to think about what I was trying to say with that. It's just rizz. I think I was just trying to say that, like, maybe since I've had surgery and I was, like, really drugged, I've just been, like, more rizzy. Like, I just feel like it's something that it's, like, kind of fun, like, kind of unlocked within me. But genuinely, it's so fun. Like, rizz up your friends every day. Like, daily affirmations, daily gratitude. Like, also, it's just funny. Like, I feel like, I don't know if I would describe myself as a witty person, but sometimes the things just come to mind. And I'm like, wow, like, I really thought with that. Like, okay, the rizz that I remember, like, I'm trying to think of the lines that were, like, pretty good. I did write, like, a pickup line for, like, a friend. It was for, like, the Valentine's Day, like, shout out thing for the MU, and I was, like, pretty proud of it. It was, like, okay, this friend really likes itoen, like, the tea. And I was, like, hey, like, how did I say it? I was, like, hey, I heard you like itoen, but you're my ito10, or something like that. something along those lines. I don't remember the exact wording of it. And then I was like, wait, I, like, low-key kind of ate with that. And then I think another one that this was uncaught rizz. Like, this rizz was not caught, so it just sounded really funny. But I think this is the same person. I was like, we were looking for spots in the MU to sit, and I think they said, see anything you like? And then I looked at them, because it's like, you're something I like, or whatever, right? And then I was, like, laughing, right, at my own joke, at my own rizz. And they were like, it's not that funny. And I was like, wait, like, the rizz? Or, like, what are you talking about? Because, like, they didn't catch that I had looked at them afterwards and was like, it's you. Yeah, I don't remember the other ones. Maybe we could do a segment of, like, top rizz moments, but, like, I don't really remember the rest of them. But I think, on a more serious note, kind of what this leads into is, like, I think it is fun to rizz, but more importantly, I think it's very, like, sweet and wholesome to show gratitude and appreciation and, like, hype up the people in your life, because I feel like, I don't know, like, sometimes people just get, like, kind of, okay, me, I get worried. I'm like, oh, actually, what if, like, suddenly everyone changed their mind, everyone hates me? Or suddenly, like, people were like, okay, Johanna's expiration day is hitting, like, she has to go soon, like, she's gonna be stale soon, like, move aside, like, you're old news. I don't know. So then sometimes, like, when I get kind of those affirmations, I feel like, oh, like, you still want me? Like, or, like, okay, or, like, just, I feel loved, I feel affirmed, and it's a very warm feeling inside. Like, recently, I got a lot of very kind reassurance from my friends, and I'm very blessed to be home and see my dear friends, and just, like, I feel like it's even affirming just spending time with them, because I feel like I'm very blessed with friends who are just so kind and considerate and reassuring and, like, hype me up. So, I don't know, I just was thinking, like, yeah, I feel like I should tell more people that I'm grateful for them, and just, like, tell them that I appreciate them, just, like, out of the blue. I feel like it's a really, really kind gesture. It's a really kind way to, like, you know, just show your friends and people in your life that you see them, you hear them, you appreciate them, and that, like, they are loved by you and appreciated by you. Or you can just rizz them up. Like, that's another way to do it. Maybe that's what I was trying to say, like, rizz and reassurance, and, like, I don't know. This is very unserious, but I mean, this is also the chalanting pod, so like it doesn't like when was it ever that serious? Um, but yeah, rizz up your friends. Okay, I think what the real catalyst for the title topic of this podcast episode was that I was recently giving relationship advice, or I've given relationship advice in the past, but Miss Girl, like, I have never been in like a romantic relationship, but then I do give advice, and there's like a joke like coaches don't play. And again, I can't actually speak for myself because I haven't been in a relationship. I don't know if my advice actually helps, my perspective is actually relevant in like real life. But I do feel like I have gained a lot of like insights just from like my friendships or even my relationship with my family. And it makes me realize like obviously romantic relationships are their own like um can of worms or whatever. But I feel like there's so many just like parallels between family, friendship, romantic relationships. Um just because I mean like not to state the obvious, but because they're all just relationships with different people. They have different dynamics, but there's so many communication things that are so similar. Like it's a very common like argument or like conflict between like friends, partners, and family, where it's like you're going to them to vent, but they give you a bunch of solutions, try to solve the problem, but you're like, no, I'm just here for like emotional support. And I've talked about this on one of my other episodes. I think it was like episode 2 or I think it was 2. Yeah, where it's like I would have that conflict with my family where it's like I'm coming to them for emotional needs, but they're trying to solve the problem, especially as like parents, they were like, okay, let's just solve the problem. And it would lead to a lot of conflicts because like one party doesn't feel heard, the other party feels like they're trying, and then their efforts are not appreciated. And it's like, oh wow, there's like a lot of overlaps between these different relationships, and this is the same conflict with different dynamics. But at the end of the day, like the real conflict is communication differences and like differences in expectations and like differences in thinking too. Like especially it's like people are like emotional logical thinkers on one end, right? Like there's like the way that you kind of are as a person, like your disposition. But I feel like there's also like socialized ways of thinking, right? With like emotions and problem solving and whatnot. Like very racialized, gendered sort of dynamics. Like especially gendered is a big one because a lot of like men are socialized to be a lot more logical, problem oriented, and like see emotions as like not valuable or worth tuning into. So that's like obviously very like impactful, like the gendered dynamics of things. And there's always like people like, oh, like men are more logical, women are more emotional. I think like obviously not inherently, but through socialization that is like a real dynamic that happens. But I also think there's like definitely a racialized like gendered aspect to it too. Like I know there's also, okay, not to generalize too much, but a lot of like independent, strong, like Asian women don't want to burden other people too. So it's like this kind of anti-emotion sentiment where it's like we shouldn't be emotional, like we should be very level-headed and logical and independent. And it's kind of to maybe fight against the more gendered like you're hysterical, you're crazy, you're too emotional sort of thing, but also with like a don't want to burden and want to be strong sort of energy. And I feel like that can be also another like way that manifests like no, we should be more logical, we should think this through. um but I also think in general too, like maybe like immigrant households as well are also more like problem solving oriented as opposed to emotion based. But I think it's not to say that emotions are Western because that's not true, but it's like the way that we understand our emotions have a lot of cultural divide too. So I think that's also worth of note. And I mean, I felt a lot of like, I guess a lot of shame over the years being like, I'm a very like emotional person, right? Like there's a lot of shame around that, especially I think the racialized gendered things because like, oh, I'm just playing into like this the generalization that like women are so emotional and like kind of maybe internalized like bias towards myself. It's like, oh, like that's so bad to be emotional and like women shouldn't be so or whatever, right? And I think especially like the kind of like Chinese immigrant household dynamic is also like, yeah, like this is too much. Like your feelings are so westernized, so Americanized. Like only your feelings matter, but not the solutions, and like that sort of dynamic. So definitely like a lot of shame around that. So I feel like a lot of that relationship dynamic can actually be like containing so many different factors and influences. I think it is just like a real common problem between people as communicators, but it's also just generally like a dynamic that's influenced by like so many different things and like ways that people are socialized. And it relates a lot to how emotions are viewed and valued, and then how solutions are viewed and valued. Okay, on that note, I've been thinking a lot about too, like how that translates into kind of more of a activism problem solving sort of thing, where it's like values, action, like doing things, feeling things. Okay, let's be more specific. Sorry, let me get more specific. Basically, like I feel like within like progressive activist space, a lot of like online spaces for me personally. I have been to some in-person spaces, but like most of the discourse I see is like online, and that captures maybe more people, right? So there'll be like dynamics of like, okay, here's one, right? Like a lot of people within activist progressive spaces really value rest, not shaming yourself, not perfectionism, like not being a perfect activist and all this stuff, because that is central to a lot of the core values that they have, which is, not overworking yourself. That's like pretty like, or not like releasing the capitalistic idea that you have to like always achieve and perfect, and then like, embracing rest as something very political. I think I talked about that in one of my other episodes too. So I think like all of that makes a lot of sense, but then there's also the pressure of like, okay, especially with like activism, it's like people are, really suffering injustices or really need help. So there's also a lot of, pressure, like real pressure and real urgency, where it's like, hey, things do need to be done. It's like you can't just say it's not that serious. It's not just, you know, I'm trying to think of something that's not that serious, but I can't think of one. But it's like a real pressing matter. Like people's lives are at risk right now, so it's like you need to, right, like do better is like kind of the language, like do better, learn better, like this is really serious, like, you should be angry, like you should be doing things all the time. And it's honestly this really hard balance. I mean, it's not just about me obviously, but like my take on it is like, wow, that feels like a really hard balance, because for a long time I was in the boat of like, you need to do more, everyone needs to do more, like I need to do more, like all this kind of like shame, and then kind of all of this, I don't know, just pressure, and like, again, that kind of capitalistic, like, value of achieving. You need to achieve this and this and this, and like it's measured through this and this and this, right? And if you're not doing this and this and this, you're doing it wrong, right? I think for me, it was like, you're wrong in your ability to make change because you're not protesting every day, or you're not, part of a certain organization. I think those are things that are good, and if you can do it, like, it's a good thing to do that, and that's something I want to do right in the future. But I felt so much shame about not being part of that as like a high schooler. But I was doing my part in ways that I could, and in other ways, and I think the reality is that that's still impactful, and like it's not fair to kind of deny myself the impact that I was able to make in my own way. So I think that's important to like take note of. And I guess now, I think my viewpoint is a lot more maybe like holistic slash people oriented. I don't want to say individualistic, because I don't think that's correct either. Like, my true belief is that like in is that like relationships and dynamics between people and community building, like all of that is actually like the core of a lot of the issues that we want to address at the end of the day. It's like how people treat one another. And it's not to be like, oh, it's only on a micro level, like that's the only way we should, like, no. Like, obviously a lot of these issues are very systemic, but I feel like the heart of a lot of the values are in people and valuing people at the end of the day. So that's kind of where I'm coming from as like a person. And I don't know, I kind of also realized that the problem in of itself is also putting a lot of the work of changing systemic years long systems of oppression onto individuals, instead of like holding who's doing it accountable. Because it is also true that there are individuals who just hold like so much power, and if they just were not evil or doing evil things, things would be better. Also understanding those evil people live within under an evil system that enables their behavior. I don't know. There's a lot I can say about this, but basically TLDR, understanding that in of itself putting shame and pressure on individuals is harmful to social progress. Like when you think about like environmentalism, right? The carbon footprint thing and the water footprint thing. I mean, yeah, I agree that you people can be mindful about that and not like that. Yes, but putting the guilt and shame on the individual and then diverting attention away from these big corporations that actually like do so much, like the impact is just gargantuan, like that isn't good either. And a lot of those like carbon footprint companies, I think, were like intentionally doing that to divert attention from like, you know, the big companies that are like making massive climate hazards, whatever, right? So I do also believe that too, where it's like putting the onus on individuals is in of itself a strategy against social change. Okay, continue on that note. I think I went on quite a tangent, but the topic we're still exploring is like how relationships are all connected, and it's kind of about like the core of like relationship dynamics as opposed to just like only romantic or only family or only friends, right? Okay, I also wanted to talk more about like on the same note, a few things. I think the first thing was like initiation communication, and the second thing was like fights and conflicts. But with initiation communication, I feel like something I've understood is like there's such a like core and foundation that comes with initiation and communication. I mean, like obviously, but the first thing is like with initiation. Okay, I'm just a big initiator. That's just something that's just part of my personality. Like, I'm like ASB girl or whatever, right? So that's just something I'm very used to. But I think for a lot of people, it's definitely something that's, like not something top of mind or something that they're very, I don't want to say like good at, but like it's not something that comes naturally or that they want to do, which is valid, and everyone comes from like a different place. It could also just be like kind of awkward, especially if it's not something that you usually do. It can feel kind of like out of the blue or like strange to kind of like break that bubble, if that makes sense. And I think especially if like you haven't done it before, it's like even harder to be like initiate, right? And I think like that's very valid, especially with like people that you don't know very well. Like okay, I did realize freshman year that I had free will, like only at the very end because I was like, oh, the end is near. As in like freshman year is going to end and we're not going to be able to live in the same area in the dorms or have the meal plan again. So I decided like the very last couple of weeks of freshman year, I was like, oh, I have free will. I should just ask people to hang out, even if like I don't know them, to get to know them better, you know? So I did, and it was like not bad because I think it's a good way to kind of like extend that connection further as opposed to just like in group settings or like in events. It's like harder to like have a real like conversation connection with someone as opposed to like a one-on-one like hangout or just like a small group, 3 people hang out, right? um but actually I like kind of translated that into like a, this is an university like event called like matcha matchups. Basically it was kind of inspired by like me doing that, and I was like, oh, like that's pretty cool. And we also had like the other inspiration was like agape dance team at Davis does like coffee with a hottie. It's like the same thing. And then also we do like exam and prayer for like university, and like you get paired up with like another person in leadership. So I was like, all with all those ideas I was like, wait, I feel like it'd be so fun to have kind of like a friendship matchmaking thing called matcha matchups, where you can sign up and be paired with someone like you don't know very well but you want to get to know. And it kind of breaches the bubble of like initiating because it's like now a thing, so it's like everyone's doing it, so it's not like super awkward. And also it's like we tell one person to initiate, so it's not like a who's gonna do it sort of situation. And I feel like it helps a lot because like then the initiation like challenge is addressed, which is, I think it's really nice. And also like you're able to do like the one-on-ones with someone you want to, you know, get to know better. And I feel like that like one-on-one connections within a group does like strengthen the bonds overall like of the community. Which is also kind of what I was saying earlier, where it's like the close bonds between people make up the community, right? That sounds obvious, but I feel like then it's important to focus on that too, as opposed to just like events with a lot of people, right? Because in a way, of like big events can actually have less of an impact when it comes to like depth as opposed to breadth, right? So I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that too. Um, I think with communication though, that's something I've been learning like a lot. Not like learning, but definitely like getting more experience with, and realizing that people just have different ways of communicating, which is stating the obvious, but it's like when you kind of live it, you're like, oh yeah, like that's actually true, and it's going to be hard to like find the middle ground and bridge those two different things. The reality is like the issue isn't in how each people communicate. Um, it's not like, oh, you communicate bad and I communicate good, but in most cases, like I'm trying to say the same thing in a different way, and you are trying to say the same thing in a different way, and we need to find a way to understand each other's language so that we can like not hate each other and come to like the same conclusion. Like, for example, one thing that I think a lot about is directness versus indirectness. Um, and I think I saw like some like TikTok about it like a while ago, but it's like some people grow up being indirect because it's like rude to be direct, so they'll use like passive aggressiveness, or they'll kind of hint at things to kind of have the other person initiate, because they're thinking it's like, oh, it's rude of me to direct to like ask outright, and they should offer, so that it's like I know that they're willing to give it. So like for example, if you go to someone's house and you want something to eat, you wouldn't be like, I'm hungry, can I have something to eat? They'd be like, that's too rude and direct. They would instead say, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten like all day, and then wait for the other person to be like, oh, can I offer you some food? um but on the other side, there are also people who grew up thinking it's more um like more polite to just ask directly, because being passive aggressive won't communicate your ideas and is like more rude than if you just ask outright. But for those two people, like they're just not going to be able to connect, because one person's going to be hinting, the other person's going to be waiting for a direct answer, and nothing will happen, and both of them are going to be upset because, passive aggressive, okay, not a okay, indirect person will be like, bro, like they don't even care, they're not even catching my signal, like they must not want to give me any food. And then direct person is like, how did I know you wanted food? I can't read your mind. And also like you can just ask. So then now there's this tension, right? The reality is like none of them are wrong, right? That's just the way they grew up. Or that's the way that they were taught to communicate, or what they think is right. Both of them don't want to be rude. So the reality is both of them do want to respect each other, but there's going to be that difference. And I think for me, I can fall in both categories sometimes. Sometimes I can be very direct, and then I think it kind of catches people off guard and I feel kind of bad. But my thinking is like, oh, if you just want to say no, you can say no, or like I'm asking with the potential of rejection, as opposed to there are also people, another communication difference, you can ask questions expecting rejection. So it might sound like forward, or kind of like, oh, like kind of out there to ask. And there are people who ask only if they think they'll say yes. So that's like another communication difference. But for example, I can be pretty direct sometimes, or I can just like, what's the word? Like just ask people whatever. And it might like catch people off guard and stuff like that. So like, my bad, right? I don't want to make people uncomfortable. And I think I do try to like be more considerate, but if I ask, I'll be like, oh, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, right? Like I'm not gonna push farther than I have. I want to respect your boundaries. But on the other hand, I think I can also be pretty indirect sometimes, especially when I'm asking for things. Sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes I am assertive and I'll just ask. But I feel like for the most part, I feel pretty demure. Like I don't feel like I can just straight up ask. And also it depends who I'm asking to. Like sometimes I kind of want to wait for them to offer, because then I know that they want to as well, and I'm not like burdening them or anything, like, so I think it's kind of difficult, and that's definitely something that I was learning as well. Like there are people who are just like, hey, just ask, because it's hard for me to like read, and like I can't actually know unless you're direct. And I'm like, okay, then it's like I need to learn to be direct with this person and like just be clear. But yeah, I think it's just the reality of different people have different mindsets, and it isn't necessarily fair for only one person to appeal to another. I feel like both people can both do a part. So it's like the indirect person can work on being more direct, knowing that person will receive it better. And the direct person can also just be more considerate and aware and can also check in and be like, hey, I know that you have trouble being direct. Can I just check in and see, is there anything that you need to tell me? Like kind of opening up a space for them to be direct if they don't feel safe doing that. And then, same for the indirect person being like, hey, I'm going to work on just like receiving your directness and knowing it's not coming from like a place of rudeness or like disrespect. So I feel like in that way, when both parties are trying, instead of just one person trying to conform to the other, it definitely like can maybe be more like smooth, and also like both people are like cognizant instead of just like one party like is kind of like unbalanced or anything. I think, okay, on the side of conflicts, right, and this kind of comes up with the communication differences. Something I kind of realize is like I don't realize, I kind of knew this, but I get very, very, very anxious with conflicts. I think I don't I don't know if I'm conflict avoidant. I think sometimes, but usually I'll address it for the most part. Like I wouldn't just like neglect a conflict and just wait for it to go away. Well, yeah, it just depends. But for the most part, I try to address it head on. But it does make me very anxious to do it. Like I'll still do it, but like I feel really scared and like anxious to bring things up. Like I had to prepare like a whole speech and be like, so like I've been feeling like I just feel like it's hard for me to assert myself too within conflicts, because it's, I don't know, I just feel like I'm not very good at doing that, and I don't feel like super valid or like backed up, so I don't feel like I can kind of, advocate or assert myself. I feel like I kind of try to err on like the other person's side of things, while trying to at least stay semi-firm in like my own thoughts. But I think I can kind of downplay it too sometimes. But I definitely try to err on the side of like listening and understanding and like whatnot, because I do know that the reality is like just getting a better understanding of where people are coming from is going to be more helpful than like making assumptions, and like it's going to be like helpful to just talk about how both people feel than just like argue about the problem, or as in like it's good to just know where the root of everything is, because it also just like kind of gives everyone more grace, because you're like, okay, where you're coming from is not as evil as I thought. Like everyone's having good intentions here, just different ways of showing it, or different perspectives. And also like I feel like apologizing and validating people's feelings is a really big part of it. But it's also hard because it is a two-way thing. If you're always the one validating and apologizing, but not receiving the same back, it's definitely like kind of an unbalanced conflict resolution, given that both sides have things they can work on. And I just feel like that's something that I want to work on too, is just like that sort of like humility in like conflicts, where it's like, yes, I was wrong in this aspect. I can change this and this. I'm sorry. I validate your feelings, but then also having the same like, you know, um, like reciprocity, like, yes, I was wrong too, and I can change this, and your feelings are valid too. And I feel like, and that's like perfect conflict resolution. Let's go, right? But I feel like in that way, like, at least both people feel like they are like seen and heard and whatever, right? I think conflict resolution is still something that I really fear, and it's just because I don't like when people are mad at each other, and like I don't like the tension and the anxiety is just a lot, and I just want everyone to like get along. So I'm just like, oh my god, like I don't want conflict. But I also do know it's like something that is like healthy, and like you should talk about things instead of just avoiding it and like letting the feelings like build up. But also I think a lot of the conflict sort of fear is like how it'll like build on my character or something, like, oh, now they're gonna think I'm like this, or they're gonna think I'm like this, so I shouldn't bring it up. But I just realized too that like just not talking about things is just gonna make it not like worse, but make it build up or resentment, or make things more serious than they really are. So like being more open, like talking about things is healthy and good, and kind of helps, I don't know if resolve is the word, but like maybe breaks that sort of seal of like can't talk about it, too serious will make things worse, and then it just kind of like builds, and like I don't know. And it makes me think too, like on a societal level, it just shows like so much about how these sort of values and like morals on relationships and like conflict resolution translate. Like I think a lot of social problems obviously start with people, like on a very like micro level, and translate to macro level how things are handled, right? Like I was thinking like while driving the other day about individual gaslighting or like within a relationship gaslighting, but there's also like institutional gaslighting, right? Where it's like institutions are making you feel crazy or less than, and that's like done on purpose or strategic. Same with honesty and lying, communication. Like poor communication between a relationship, you're not going to have as much trust or you know what's going on. Same with institutions, governments, right? Poor communication, not people not knowing what's going on, it's going to cause chaos and confusion and mistrust, right? Something I learned from doing PUC school board, communication transparency, right? But then there's also just like general empathy, listening, validating people's feelings. That's also a big part of like society, right? Um, like people's feelings matter. Not us to say that actions and reality don't matter either, but it's like a lot of people's feelings become reality. And also it's like recognizing the justice kind of aspect of it too. Like who is in the wrong, who is in the right. Kind of what I was saying about reciprocity doesn't make sense if one party is put in a position where they have to only like always apologize and always take accountability, but the other people kind of get let off easy. There's kind of like those sort of power dynamics as well, like on a more institutional societal level. um I think that comes a lot with like racial dynamics, right? It's um like a lot of white people in power don't feel this similar pressure or need to, apologize or take accountability, as opposed to people of color or other marginalized people feel like they need to, or else they'll literally be like criminalized or villainized or portrayed in a way that's like not very fair, even if they were the ones who were like wronged in the first place. Um, so I just feel like a lot of the micro interactions between people, especially the really harmful ones where people don't take responsibility or don't know how to resolve conflict or whatever, obviously translate to macro level structural realities. Just because I feel like that's just like the way human nature translates onto a larger scale. But it's something I think about a lot. Like when I see issues within relationships, like friendships or romantic relationships or family, and I look at the social issues in society, I'm like, wow, it's like the same. It's all the same, just on a much bigger scale. And that's not to like downplay either of them. That's not to downplay individual relationships or downplay societal ones, but just to say that like as much as we think our personal lives are personal, like our friendships are personal, our families, like it's not. It's actually not that personal when you think about it because of how our relationships are influenced by societal dynamics, kind of like what I was saying about like the whole like emotions solutions thing, but also because of how our daily interactions, our relations with one another form communities, form dynamics, form ideas of how things should be, and then they also just kind of like influence and are part of building a societal form of conflict resolution and what's it called, like dynamics with one another. Like I've also seen like videos or TikToks or stuff when people kind of take geopolitical issues and they frame them as like relationship dynamics. Obviously, I my only thing is like they shouldn't downplay the reality of a lot of these geopolitical conflicts or like wars or genocides. Like those are really serious, large scale forms of harm that cannot be compared to like a micro level like relationship conflict. But I think when it is put in terms of a relationship or I don't know, but like a dynamic, right, of abuse or power or imbalance, then it's like people can, not like people can understand, but it just put in a way where it's like, yeah, this is just where it's coming from. This is how people are treating each other. It's wrong. And these are kind of like the factors that are playing into it. Okay, I feel like I'm being super vague right now. I'm so sorry. But it's like understanding, for example, like abuse within relationships. A lot of that comes from societal power plays, right? Whether that's gendered or racialized, or age differences, right? And that cannot just be understood in a vacuum, right? It can't just be like, oh, that's just one person who's like that. It's like that is a product of this system. And that contributes to a system. For example, like gender power dynamics is within patriarchal system and contributes to the patriarchal system. So in the same way, like if we think about race, like racial dynamics and colonialism is like this big, obviously very like highly impactful, unjust practice. But if you think about it from like a power dynamic, it's like abuse, it's exploitation, right? And that can happen on both macro micro levels. People talk about like decolonizing your mind or decolonizing workspaces and stuff like that, and it kind of just shows like how those dynamics can kind of seep into, or I wouldn't say seep into, but everything is implicated within those dynamics, even on the smallest levels. Okay, I hope all of this is making sense. It's definitely like kind of hard for me to put into words, but it's something that I do think about a lot. It's kind of been like swirling like in my mind. I think that's all I have for today's episode. Definitely a lot more chaotic and not a lot of, cohesiveness, but hey, that's okay because chalanting podcasts can do whatever we want. And we're just here to yap, honestly. But those are some of the things that have been on my mind. I might have forgotten some things. Maybe I will just come back and film some more if I feel so led. But thank you so much for watching today's episode and for being such a fan, such a follower. I really appreciate, here's me practicing I really appreciate, and I'm very grateful to anyone who's listening to this. It's definitely something I'm very passionate about, and that means a lot to me, so much love to you guys, my chalanting bays. Thank you. Yes, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and the best sleep of your life. Okay, bye guys.